At exactly 6:10 every morning, Eleanor Whitmore poured 2 cups of coffee, even though she lived alone and had done so for 9 years. Eleanor Whitmore was 72 years old and lived in a small, pale blue house on the edge of a quiet town in Oregon, USA. The house had 3 bedrooms, though she used only one. The other 2 stayed closed, doors always shut, as if the rooms were holding their breath. Her mornings never changed. She woke before the alarm, always a few minutes before dawn. Her joints protested softly as she sat up in bed, a dull ache in her knees, a stiffness in her fingers. She waited a moment before standing. She had learned patience from her own body. In the kitchen, the floor tiles were cold even in summer. She filled the kettle, listening to the familiar rush of water. The coffee maker clicked and hummed, an old machine she refused to replace because it still worked. And because her late husband had bought it with a coupon clipped from the newspaper. 2 cups every morning. One stayed untouched on the table until it went cold. Eleanor sat by the window, wrapped in a gray cardigan that smelled faintly of laundry soap and old wood. Outside, rain fell lightly, tapping the glass like careful fingers. She watched it without thinking much, the way one watches a clock when there's nowhere else to be. After breakfast toast, usually dry, she washed the same dishes, wiped the same counter, and opened the same blinds. Life moved in small, manageable circles. The quiet used to feel peaceful. Now it felt loud. Some days, Eleanor realized she hadn't spoken a single word aloud until evening. Her voice surprised her when she did finally use it, thin, slightly rusty, as if it hadn't been practiced enough. She tried to stay busy. She watered the plants. She folded laundry slowly, smoothing every crease. She wrote grocery lists even when she remembered everything already. But loneliness had a way of slipping into the spaces between tasks. It sat with her in the living room, where the couch still dipped slightly on the left side. It followed her into the hallway, where a family photo hung crooked, untouched since the funeral. The hardest part wasn't being alone. It was feeling unnecessary. Her daughter lived in another state. They spoke once a month, sometimes less. The calls were polite, short, filled with updates about work, traffic, weather. Eleanor never complained. She didn't want to be a burden. At night, she sometimes sat at the kitchen table long after dinner, listening to the refrigerator hum, wondering when exactly she had become someone people checked on out of obligation instead of need. On a rainy Tuesday, Eleanor noticed the mail carrier waiting at her porch longer than usual. He was young, maybe early 30s, with a damp cap pulled low and a stack of letters tucked under his arm. He knocked once, softly. When Eleanor opened the door, he smiled in a way that seemed practiced but still kind. "Morning, ma'am. Sorry to bother you. Your mailbox hinge is loose." Letters almost fell out. "Oh," Eleanor said, embarrassed. "I hadn't noticed." He crouched and nudged the box gently. "I can tighten it tomorrow if you'd like. No charge." "That's kind of you," she replied, unsure what else to say. He nodded. "I'm Caleb, by the way." Eleanor. From that day on, Caleb greeted her whenever she was awake when he passed. Sometimes just a wave, sometimes a brief good morning. It wasn't much, but it was something. Weeks passed. Caleb fixed the mailbox. Then he started leaving her mail neatly stacked instead of shoved through the slot. On colder mornings, he knocked to make sure packages weren't left in the rain. One day, Eleanor surprised herself by saying, "Would you like some coffee?" "It's already made." Caleb hesitated, then smiled. Just for a minute. They sat at the small kitchen table. Eleanor poured from the second cup. "So," Caleb said, warming his hands around the mug, "you lived here long?" 34 years, she answered. "Feels shorter when you say it out loud." He nodded. "My grandma used to say that." They didn't talk much, but silence felt different with someone else in it. After that, coffee became occasional. Not daily, just enough to look forward to. Caleb talked about his route, the long hours, the dogs that scared him, the ones that wagged. Eleanor listened. She found herself remembering how to respond, how to ask questions, how to laugh softly at the right time. She noticed things again, how the rain smelled when the door opened, how conversation made time move faster. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt seen, facing the fear of becoming invisible and learning. That connection doesn't have an age limit. One afternoon, Caleb didn't come, nor the next day. Eleanor told herself not to worry. Routes changed. People moved on. But by the third day, she sat by the window longer than usual. When he finally returned, his smile was thinner. "Everything all right?" Eleanor asked. He paused, then sighed. "My mom passed last week. I took some time off." "I'm sorry," Eleanor said quietly. "My grandma raised me," he added. "After she died, I thought I'd never feel grounded again." Eleanor swallowed. Her hands trembled slightly. "My husband died 9 years ago," she said. "Some days I still set out to cups of coffee." Caleb looked at the extra mug on the table. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. That afternoon, Eleanor opened the 2 closed bedrooms for the first time in years. She aired them out. She dusted old furniture. She cried, but gently, as if the tears were allowed now. Later that evening, she poured only 1 cup of coffee. Life didn't suddenly change. Eleanor still lived alone. Her daughter still called once a month. Her joints still ached. But something inside her had shifted. She started walking in the evenings. She waved at neighbors she had ignored for years. She planted flowers by the mailbox. Some mornings, Caleb stopped by. Some mornings, he didn't. And that was okay, because Eleanor no longer felt invisible. One quiet Sunday, she placed 2 cups on the table again, but this time, one was for a neighbor who had stopped by with homemade soup. She smiled as she poured, not because she needed someone to fill the silence, but because she had learned something gentle and true. Even late in life, connection isn't a miracle. It's a choice. And dignity is knowing you're still worthy of being heard. The rain tapped the window softly, and Eleanor Whitmore sat upright at the table, coffee warm in her hands, present in her own life again.